of Finance has secured approval for 5 loans totaling $3.45 billion from the Federal Executive Council. These funds are earmarked for projects that will bolster the power sector, renewable energy, revenue generation, education, and women's empowerment. Also approved is the Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation Trust Fund, with a governing board that hopes to raise at least $5 billion annually. State House correspondent Adesua Moron has more.
It's another session of the Federal Executive Council meeting where several decisions were reached that touch upon crucial aspects of the Nigerian society. Ministers took turns to present the approvals secured for their respective ministries. To enhance rapid responses to humanitarian crises like floods and emergencies, the Council authorized the establishment of a Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation Trust Fund.
Every year, we hope to be able to raise at least $5 billion within this fund, and this is from the different sectors. So we're going to have contribution from government, of course, from the private sector, development partners, individuals, philanthropic individuals, and other innovative form of crowdfunding.
Given the increasing number of out-of-school children and the country's dwindling statistics in this regard, there was a strong focus on educational empowerment for adolescent girls and out-of-school children during the meeting.
Initially, from 7 participating states, we now have about 11 additional states participating in this project, which will lead to the empowerment of girls between 10 to 20 right across the participating states. This is a very major escalation of this program that is meant to empower our girls, our teachers, and the provision for additional schools in the country.
The Minister of Finance elaborates on the country's financing plans for projects aimed at empowering the girl child and improving various sectors, including power, totaling $3.45 billion.
They were to do with concessional and in many cases zero interest financing by the World Bank and the International Development Association. And as you know, the tenure is upwards of, is all around 40 years, moratorium period around 10 years, and interest very low, or in the cases of the IDA loans, zero interest, although some fees would occur.
As the nation seeks to diversify from oil, the Minister of Solid Minerals, with approval for a policy against illegal mining, is confident that it would be a new era in the sector.
This time around, we are injecting a large dose of technology. Yes, we have a very vast land area and porous borders as well. So the incidence of illegal mining is very, very pervasive, especially in the rural areas. And we've also traced incidents of banditry to the handiwork of illegal miners, especially foreign illegal miners.
Furthermore, the Council ratified the protocol for the protection of older persons in the country, aligning with the African Charter to safeguard the rights and dignity of older individuals and protect them from discrimination. Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
President Bola Tinubu addressed business community concerns at the 29th Nigerian Economic Summit, reassuring it that measures are being implemented to enhance foreign exchange liquidity in Nigeria. He pled to honor all legitimate foreign exchange contracts to clear a significant backlog and boost investor confidence. That backlog, estimated at around $10 billion, has strained local Nigerian banks, causing corresponding banks to suspend several transactions. This has mounted pressure on the Nigerian currency, the naira, at the parallel market and the official exchange window, raising concerns about its further depreciation.
The 5 sub-themes: stimulating economic growth, mobilizing finance for sustainable economic development, harnessing human capital, reforming public institutions, and promoting national cohesion and inclusion. are consistent with my administration's Renew Hope agenda, and we are confident that this summit will serve as a platform for translating our strategic vision into action and result with collaboration with you. After a decade dominated by 2 economic recessions and a global pandemic, we find ourselves coming into federal administration at a time that is laden with even more challenging socio-economic conditions than was the case in 1993, the year of the very first Nigerian Economic Summit. Combined global economic growth is projected not only to stagnate but slide into a reverse trajectory over the next fiscal year from 3.5 million percent growth recorded in 2022 down to 3.0 in 2023 and 2024.
Well, a lot to talk about, KNUFI. Yesterday, the president was at the opening ceremony of the Nigerian Economic Summit, and tongue twist there. But also, very importantly, earlier on, we'd seen that he also presided over a FEC meeting following 1 week after the second one held last week. Your thoughts on this?
Yep, it's good to see the president attending the economic summit. But first, let's talk about the FEC meeting. The FEC meeting, the Minister of Information and National Orientation came out to say that yes, now they've moved it to every Monday. So if it is every Monday...
No, not every Monday.
No, well, he said it will be held on Mondays. Yes, I stand to be correct. I accept the correction. He said every Monday when it is possible. And when they deem it important to have the meeting. Now, I do wonder on which week of the year or the month would you say that there is nothing important to discuss in Nigeria? I cannot think of one. The whole of this week, we're only Tuesday today. We're not even on Wednesday yet. And the number of things that has happened in Nigeria that requires the federal government to meet, discuss, strategize, and plan is many. So by the time we get to next Monday, if there's no FEC meeting, you begin to wonder, are these people watching what's going on in the country? If they're not, then we have a serious challenge on our hands that our government is not actually watching what's going on. So saying that it's only when it's important means that they've given themselves the freedom to not have to hold it and say that we did say that it will hold on Mondays only when we think it is necessary. Every week is necessary. But talking about the Nigeria Economic Summit, that one is also good. Not all the presidents have attended every year. It's an annual, it's the epic, it's the most buoyant economic summit in Nigeria with all the captains of industry attending and all that. So it's good to see the president attending the first one of his government. Now, the third thing I wanted to mention is the fact that I am worried that we're going to take loan for poverty alleviation. Is unsustainable as far as I'm concerned. But in the same vein, I will commend the government that they're looking at education and health. These are the two areas that are most ignored in Nigeria for the last 20, 30 years. And that's why our health system or sector is in serious trouble and our education is almost nowhere, except for the private universities and private secondary and primary institutions. Our public sector education is in dire need of government support and funding. So if they're taking loans funds to support that are health and our education. Well done. Kudos to the president and the government. But I hope that that money goes to the right thing in terms of infrastructure development and strategy for those children to have good education in public school, and also to make sure that our health sector is doing well. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Kay. Fine.
So a couple of things. Monday FEC meeting, 3.5 billion to be borrowed from World Bank. Here we go again. If you read the mid-term expenditure framework, talks about the fact that we'll have to borrow about 26 trillion in the space of 3 years as a benchmark, to be able to meet most of our developmental prospects and encumbrances. And this money being borrowed, even if, as Mr. Finance Minister Wale Edun said, some of them are concessionary 40 years and all of that, it's still a loan you have to pay back. But the question is, it's not that loans are bad, but what do you use them for? Over the years, we've seen that what we use our loans for has been couched around corruption and ineffectiveness, and we don't see anything out of it. So when the APC government came about 8 years ago, they started couching this idea of, social welfare government and all of that. But the question is, when you take the empirical stats, has it worked? What happened to the school feeding program? What happened to the trader money? What happened to the market money? How did those things move the needle as regards bringing people out of poverty? I think what the government should focus on, yes, you can also couch an argument around social interventions, but the government should focus predominantly on boosting the economy. Because if the economy grows, then you can have all-round GDP growth, and you can create more job and it feeds back into the system. And also the social intervention should be tied around timelines, so we don't copy things in full. The likes of Bolsa Familias of this world in Brazil that you copy, they tie it around timelines. Okay, if your child goes to school, you get this money. All right, they know that at some point it will terminate because your child will have gotten an education and will go into the employment market. But if the children get out of school, what employment market are they going to? So that's the conversation we need to have. And they said they're going to have a governance board, for this new 5 billion trust fund. I just hope the governance board does things effectively. But I also want to talk about the NASG. A lot of promises were made that are not feasible. I'll give you one. This talk about Nigeria $1 trillion economy by 2026, to me it's not feasible. And I'll give you empirical calculations. Today Nigeria has 395 billion GDP. Hypothetically, it's not possible. Nigeria will not grow 20%. Hypothetically, if Nigeria grows 20%, what will happen is that you add 79 billion to the GDP. Iterate 79 billion by 20% constant growth for the next 3 years. It will give you 237 billion. 237 billion plus the 395 billion we have today will just give you a little over 600 billion, maybe 637 billion. So that's how well we can grow. So this idea of 1 trillion, I just think is another political poetry. 1 trillion GDP 2026. I think the government too should also tell people the realistic expectations. This 10 billion too that they said will be coming in for capital injection, where will the money be coming in from? Is it also part of the Afrexim 3.5 billion that we don't know about? So, and when the money comes in, we plunge into the forex market. So what happens next after all of this? Because we have built a culture where we have over-dependence on the dollar, but we forget that we don't print the dollar in this country. So when we plunge that into the foreign exchange market, what happens next afterwards? Where are we going to get more liquidity? Or is it going to drive liquidity? Our argument for floating the currency in the first place was because we wanted liquidity. Yeah. So we wanted to open up our economy in such a way that foreign investors will come and put liquidity. But they have not put liquidity in because there is some constraints. So it's time for us to sort out the bureaucratic bottlenecks and the hitherto cultural problem, the legacy problems, and be able to free our economy. So the government should be realistic with what it can do to the people, and let's help build this economy.